Hello, everyone. This is Professor Imler, and we're continuing our discussion on epistemology today. And last time we looked at rationalism by Rene Descartes, and this time we're going to be looking at Locke's view of empiricism, his theory of perception. So, our main question is, do we have knowledge? Can we get knowledge? What's the knowledge like about the outside world? Can you and I come to an agreement about what the world is like and what truth is? So that's kind of what's at stake. And when we looked at all of our sources of knowledge that we actually use today, we found that all of them are problematic. We kind of went to these two boxes to reason itself, which so far we haven't found problems with. We almost did, but we solved them last time with Descartes. So maybe we can trust reason, but can we get knowledge of the outside world? Do we have this other one here, experience of the world? And we noticed that this was always mediated through our senses, right? At the very edges of our body, we take in information about the world. I can touch, smell, feel, etc. All that stuff. So our first person was Descartes. And we looked at him last time. He deconstructed everything he thought he knew, and he was looking for some sort of new belief system. I'm sorry, a new foundation, a new bedrock for his belief. And then he wanted to build something new, right? He had all these things that were being questioned, and we talked about this anxiety that comes with doubt and how everything was falling apart, kind of like today. Uh, so then he goes on this, and we're not going through it right now, but he goes on this doubt process, and he comes to this famous philosophical formulation. Hey, I'm doubting. That means I'm thinking, right? If I'm thinking, well, I must be. There must be something doing the thinking. And this is what we called the cogito. He tried to argue his way out, and maybe he did. He might have made a big misstep here with what we call the Cartesian circle. But he never was able to overcome this problem of the senses. Um, and so, because of that, he could trust good reasoning, but he could never, ever, ever trust knowledge of the outside world, measurements, so forth. So, his goal is certainty, and he can only trust reasoning, right? Certainty, reasoning only. Now, uh, not the only perspective. We're back to this question of, can we know the outside world? Descartes seems to argue that we can't know it for certain. But wait a second. What if we change the criteria and say that we're looking for not certainty, but rather, oh, I don't know, probability. It is likely that I'm getting accurate information about the apple. I might not know for certain, but I'm pretty sure. So if that's the case, um, notice what this might entail. Things might get pretty messy pretty quickly. Let's go to view mode here. So one consequence of Rene Descartes' understanding of things is that um, if we can't get information about the outside world, where does our mind get any information from? Well, they cannot have come from outside of us, and we could not have made them up ourselves. So, this is where you can kind of see why this painting was painted this way. So we must, and this is why this guy is like literally pointing up, right? Um, it's because if we can't trust the world, we have to go into our minds, or God has to like preload us with a bunch of ideas, like a bunch of software for a computer or apps on a tablet. Well, one question emerges. Uh, One, you need God to even have ideas, and is that really the case? Uh, Also, are we really preloaded with ideas? Where do we really learn our ideas from? So, how do we get preloaded with all of these ideas? We want to avoid, and God made it so. God just solved our problems for us. So this is kind of what he comes to. He has this critique of rationalism saying, hey, uh, there are no innate ideas. Everything that we learn when we actually look at it, we learned from looking at the world, counting things, hearing our parents talk about numbers, etc. So he has this emphasis on sensory input and then thinking about it. So he says that our minds, when we're born, they're blank slates. Nothing is written on it. God didn't list out a bunch of preloaded apps and stuff. So instead, we're empty minds, and the only way we get stuff into our minds to play with is from the outside world, so through the senses. So the question is, what does that look like? Well, here we have his basic theory, and I'll kind of walk us through this quickly. So he has this thing called the substance. Now, take note of this. This is something out in the world, completely separate from us. It gives off, according to him, qualities like extension. The apple is so many centimeters tall. It has a shape, roundness. It has a color, redness. The redness is not the apple itself. The roundness is not the apple itself. The size of the apple is not the apple itself, but they're qualities or aspects of the apple. Um, you can slice these up into what we call primary and secondary. So primary things are aspects of the apple that if they were different, it wouldn't be an apple. Um, but then there's the accidental stuff, which is those things that could change and it still be an apple. It still be the same type of thing. So an easy way to think about this is some apples are green, some apples are red, but they're apples still. So redness would be a accidental quality of an apple. But having a waxy skin with a certain kind of flesh inside, sugary, pulpy flesh, that's required. So that's a primary quality of an apple, where redness or color is something else, is secondary. So, but all of these qualities, and then think about the edges of your body, right? That's where our senses collect information at, right? We collect the properties, and he calls the act of grabbing them sensation, right? It happens at the edge of our bodies, and it's kind of a recording process. Nothing's being done with that information, it's just getting acquired, it's just being seen. Now, as that goes into us, it goes into our mind as what he calls these perceptions. Um, and these perceptions, as they go into the mind, are simple ideas of redness, extension, roundness, and then we assemble those simple ideas into something more complex, like hopefully the substance out in the world. Um, and this is kind of his basic thinking. We're using an apple, but you can use this for any kind of anything about the outside world, whether it's looking at the stars in the sky, listening to your friends talk, or looking at an apple. Okay, so if this is how he generally sees things, well, maybe we don't know for certain that the complex idea of the substance matches the apple out in the world, but perhaps we can be more or less certain about it. So we can talk maybe about probability. All right. So this kind of gets his theory of ideas. We've already talked about taking simple ideas from our perceptions and assembling them into something uh, complex. Sometimes it's an abstract idea, like from looking at the world, we can think about triangles and so forth. Uh, right? That's kind of how he thinks all mathematics initially began, was us looking at the world, counting, and then thinking about that, coming up with these abstract ideas, mathematics, and so on. So yeah, we go from simple ideas to more complex ones. Now, when it comes to the outside world, the apple, which is the substance here, is giving off these qualities, which are recorded by our senses as simple ideas, and we combine them into this complex idea of the substance. Well, we have that experience, right, of the apple. We have the idea in our mind. We assume that from this thing in our mind, there's a corresponding apple out in the world. But John Locke said, hey, our senses are unreliable. We can get good information, but we never directly perceive the world. So this means that we have no direct evidence for the substance or the apple outside of the idea in our mind. And he admits this, right? I said this earlier. He says substance is we know not what. And so what emerges from this problem? If we make the guess that there's not a substance, right? One guess is there is, one guess is that there's not. When we imagine that there might not be, a lot of really interesting things happen. And that's what we'll be talking about next time, is what if there's nothing out there? Because we seemingly cannot prove that there's anything out there the way we want. And is reality stable? Is Locke right? Is there a substance? Or is something really weird going on? Um, and that is what we'll look at next time. All right, so this was a quick video, and I'll see you next time.